Hey everyone, this is Chess on the Brain with National Master David Bennett. So today I really want to talk about the opposition and demystify this whole thing. It came about because I was just talking to a student of mine, a senior student, and she was like, "What is this thing about the opposition? I've read about it, I've heard people talking about it, but still, it's just," she felt like nobody really explained it that clearly. Maybe they overcomplicated it. So hopefully I can break it down for you. I gave her a good explanation. She seemed like afterwards she had a clear idea of what it was. So it's this idea of opposition and outflanking. Now, those are these fancy chess words, but let's break it down and get to the heart of why it matters. That's what this channel is all about. So here's the idea. We're playing with the black pieces. We want to push our pawn and get a queen. We have a king who's standing in our way. So the idea is we need to gain the opposition in order to help us push the pawn down to control the queening square. So the opposition is not an end in itself. The opposition is the means by which we're going to control the queening square, or as I like to call, make a red carpet for our pawn. And feel free to steal these ideas. These are just things that I've found that are useful to kind of come up with these metaphors. And hey, chess knowledge is it's supposed to be shared by everyone. So I want to share all these ideas with you that work for me, and it's about mentorship. So use that to mentor someone who's trying to understand it themselves. So hopefully this makes sense to you. So king needs to go in front of the opposing king to get the opposition. That's the first step. So here's the opposition. Now it's a counterintuitive move because you say, why are you stepping in front of your pawn? Most people would say, hey, I want to push my pawn. Unfortunately, that actually leads to a draw because look at white moves over. Now who has the opposition? White does. What is the opposition exactly? It's essentially the face-off. You win the face-off. So when the king goes in front like this, it's like in hockey, or it's like a jump ball in basketball. I think of it like that, where you're right in front of them. Technically, there's an odd number of squares in between the kings, and the opposing king has to step aside. Think of it like that. So you say to your opponent, step aside. So when this king goes to e6, he forces the white king to move. There's no other pawn moves, nothing else that white can do. So white must step aside, allowing black to gain entry into white's position. So again, it's not an end in itself. We're not going to just keep on getting the opposition. If we did that, we would just keep on shuffling. The point is to gain ground and control the queening square, and that's where you have outflanking, which we're going to get into. So let's say we just push the pawn. See, white is the one that now has an odd number of squares in between him and black's king, and now black needs to move away. So because white has the opposition, it's a draw. So for example, after push, only way black can make progress, white moves over, black goes here. So that's a draw. There's no moves that white has, that's a stalemate, and there's no check. Okay, so here's the idea. Right here, this is the main line. King goes in front of the pawn, the counterintuitive move, but again, to gain the opposition. Odd number of squares in between them. There could be one square, it could be three squares, but this is the main form where there's one square apart. White must move aside, and then you outflanking is where you gain ground. So again, we don't want to just keep on getting the opposition. Then white would just keep on shuffling, and we're going to get a threefold repetition, right? So the point is, once the king moves over, after the king goes to e1, we're going to gain ground and control the queening square on d1. And then we can create a red carpet. Say we want this pawn to become a queen, so we say, hey, I've made a red carpet for you. I'm going to usher the pawn down, and there's nothing that the white king can do to stop it because this pawn is going to be protected by the black king in every instance. And obviously, a king can't move next to a king. I kind of like on chesskid.com, they say stinky breath king. Or I think of it like the kings are sort of like two negative or two positive magnets that can never quite touch. They're always repelling each other, right? So we know that we can just push the pawn down. There's nothing that white can do to stop it. Come up, push the pawn. No matter what you do, I'm going to push the pawn, and we're going to get a queen. And then you can get into, queen and king checkmates. But the key is to get there in the first place and to make sure that your opponent doesn't get a draw. You have to ensure there's no stalemate. Remember, if you just go ahead and push, white's going to get the opposition. It's going to be a draw. Unless, of course, the king started on e1. Because then after a push, then you'd still be able to win, actually. I could show you that. So with the king on e1 already, it wouldn't make sense to go here, because then the white king would just go here. And now actually white is the one with the opposition. So black just lost his chance to win. Can't give them the opposition. So how does black retain the opposition in this situation? You actually push the pawn. It's as if the king had just moved to e3 in this circumstance. As if the pawn were already on d3 and the king just came in and got the opposition. So when you play here, then the king tries to blockade, but now it doesn't work. The pawn pushes and the king has an escape square. King has to go out, obviously can't go this way anymore since the pawn's controlling that. So when the king comes out, now we come in and we still have a red carpet, a very small red carpet, but we still have the control of the queening square, and we're going to push and get in. So remember, it's that opposition. It's that really important opposition that allows you to gain control, or in this very unique circumstance, to just push your pawn and kick them out. But generally, we're going to have this situation where the king would actually step in front of the pawn. And again, the key is to be 2 squares away from the king and make the king move out of the way, tell him step aside, I'm coming in, and I'm going to push my pawn down, and you're not going to stop it. So hopefully that makes sense, and let me know if you have any questions.